The second I opened the back gate, the heat slammed into me like a truck. I wasn't even supposed to be there yet. I'd shown up almost an hour early to prep meds and make sure we had the new batch of puppies cleaned up before inspection. But everything felt off. The dogs weren't barking like they usually did when someone came in. It was too quiet. The sun was barely up, and I was already sweating through my shirt. I was walking past the storage shed behind Kennel Row when I heard it. This low, scratchy thump, like someone weakly hitting metal. I stopped, waited, heard it again. I jogged over, yanked the padlock, and realized it wasn't locked, just latched shut from the outside. When I pulled the door open, a wave of hot, stale air poured out. Inside, in the corner near the overturned mop bucket, was Marla. She was lying on her side, soaked in sweat, hair matted to her face. Her lips looked cracked, and her arms were twitching like she couldn't control them. Jesus, Marla. I knelt beside her. What the hell happened? She barely got the words out. Water, please. I've been in here since yesterday. I ran to the staff sink and filled one of the metal dog bowls. It was lukewarm and probably nasty, but she didn't care. She drank half before coughing hard and dropping it. I thought I was gonna die in here. Who did this? I asked. Marla pushed herself up against the wall, still shaking. I found something in the vet logs. A bunch of records didn't match. Vaccines recorded that were never given. I sent copies to Saul yesterday morning. I stared at her. Our Saul? Yeah. He told me to recheck inventory. Said he'd meet me back there. He never came. Just closed the damn door behind me. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I helped her up, her legs barely working. She held onto my shoulder like she was going to fall any second. Her skin was hot to the touch, like she'd been roasting in an oven. He locked me in because I found out, she whispered. He knows I have proof. We hobbled back toward the clinic, one arm around my neck, her steps dragging in the gravel. I was shaking, not from fear, not yet, but from how fast the pieces were falling into place. If Marla was right, this was way bigger than a screw-up in the system. This was a cover-up, and Saul just tried to bury it. Marla could barely keep her feet under her. Every few steps, her knees buckled, and I had to shift my arm tighter around her back just to keep her from collapsing. Her shirt was soaked clean through, stuck to her like plastic wrap. I wasn't sure if she was sweating or if it was just everything her body gave up trying to survive the night. We were halfway across the back lot when Saul pulled into his reserved spot in that shiny black Ram he always bragged about. He slammed the door, started walking toward us, fast. What's going on here? He said, real cheerful, like we were just out for a stroll. I didn't even try to play nice. She was locked in the goddamn shed. His face barely twitched. The shed doesn't lock. Tell that to her skin, I snapped. Marla lifted her head, voice dry and cracking. You shut the door on me yesterday. Saul held up his hands. All right, everyone slow down. This is a misunderstanding. She let go of my shoulder and tried to step forward on her own, but she staggered and nearly hit the gravel. Saul rushed like he was going to help her, but I stepped between them. You shut that door, Saul, she said. You left me in there overnight, in this heat. You're dehydrated and confused, he said, shaking his head. Jesus, I came in early to help and now I'm getting blamed for what? You falling asleep on the job? More staff started arriving. Haley and Connor came through the side gate, holding breakfast bags, both stopping cold when they saw Marla slumped against me, barely upright. Saul turned and raised his voice. Hey guys, just a heads up. Marla's not feeling great. Think she overheated or something. We're taking her to the clinic. He put on that fake-ass concerned smile he used during press events. I didn't say anything. I just walked right past him with Marla, every step louder than his lies. The clinic was cool, finally. Fluorescent lights humming, the floor clean enough to eat off of. The vet on call took one look at Marla and didn't ask a single question. Straight to fluids, blood pressure, temperature, electrolytes. After 20 minutes on a table with an IV in her arm, her face got some color back. That's when she looked at me and said, He's covering his ass because I caught him faking the reports. I pulled the curtain shut and leaned in. How many? A lot. Dozens. Maybe more. Records say dogs got vaccinated. Rabies, distemper, heartworm. But the meds were never opened. The seals were still on the damn boxes. I stared at her. You're sure? I took photos, she whispered. Made copies. It wasn't just skipped vaccines. Some of the meds, stuff used for surgery sedation, were expired. or just missing. Like the order was placed, then vanished. My stomach turned. Why the hell would he do that? To save money, hit quotas, look good to the county. I think he's been pushing fake numbers for years. Anyone who questions it either gets transferred to another location or pushed out. She looked away, jaw tight. You remember Tara? Of course. She quit last year. She didn't quit. She found missing meds too. Next thing she knew, she was being investigated for improper conduct. Same with Jerome, same with Melissa. It's a pattern. I stood there, trying to keep my breathing even while everything in me buzzed like a live wire. The clinic lights felt too bright now, the air too quiet. I'd worked here for 3 years, trusted people, trusted him. I didn't say anything right away. I just opened the curtain and walked out. Saul was sitting in the front lobby, sipping coffee like he hadn't just tried to kill someone. I didn't punch him. I didn't scream. But I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You better start praying those files are gone, because if they're not, you're finished." He smirked. Just barely. That was enough. Saul's smirk stuck in my head the entire walk back to the office. I didn't even wait for Marla to get discharged. I already knew what I was about to do. I walked into the front admin room, grabbed a pen from the cracked plastic cup, and scrawled my resignation on a piece of dog intake paperwork. Marla came in 10 minutes later and did the same on the back of an old kennel checklist. We handed them straight to Saul. He barely glanced at the pages before sliding them into a drawer. "Well," he said, leaning back in that worn-out fake leather chair, "guess this means you're not interested in advancement." Then he smiled like he'd just won. "Go to hell," Marla said. He didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "You'll find the industry's smaller than it looks. Good luck out there." 2 days later, I sent out 10 applications. 4 local clinics, 3 rescues, 2 vet tech openings at the animal hospital in Springdale, and 1 out in Marshall. Not a single callback. 3 of the job listings vanished within 24 hours. When I followed up on the rest, I either got ghosted or hit with awkward, polite rejections. One guy even said, "You used to work under Saul, right?" That's a tough crowd. Marla got the same treatment. A week went by, then another. Her savings dried up fast, and she ended up crashing with her sister up in Fayetteville. We texted every day. Some nights we'd talk for hours, venting, brainstorming, sometimes just sitting on the line in silence. We were mad, yeah, but we were also humiliated, burned, shut out like we didn't exist. One night she said, "You know what I found out? The shelter's tied into county contracts." "For what?" I asked, driving some guy's sushi order through a thunderstorm. Schools, nursing homes, even daycare centers. All their therapy animal vet work runs through Saul's network. His people control the paperwork. I almost missed a turn. She kept going. They cut corners on regular shelter dogs. Now imagine what they're doing with animals that actually interact with kids and old folks. I pulled into a driveway and handed the food off, then sat in my car with the wipers going full blast. "You're saying the same expired meds were being used in public contract jobs? I'm saying we don't know, and that's the problem." I didn't sleep that night, or the next one. I started delivering from 7 in the morning till midnight, barely scraping $60 after gas. My phone battery never lasted more than 5 hours. My car stank of fast food and dog treats from the old job. Every time I saw a shelter van drive by, I wanted to throw something through the windshield. That's when I told her, "I'm done surviving. You want to go public?" "Hell yeah." She was quiet for a second. "All right, but if we do this, it has to count." "It will." And that was it. No big pep talk, no dramatic vow. Just 2 people who'd had enough of being stepped on and lied to. We weren't even trying to be heroes. We just wanted the truth out there. Because whatever Saul was doing, it wasn't just corruption. It was danger, real danger, and people needed to know. The next morning, I was back behind the wheel, dragging ass through another food delivery shift, wondering if I'd lost my mind agreeing to go public. The money wasn't enough. The car smelled like warm meat, and every time my phone pinged, I hoped it was a job callback. But it never was. Around noon, I pulled up to a faded ranch house off an old 2-lane road outside Ozark. The ticket said, "Double meat gyro and fries." I was about to drop the bag on the doormat when the door creaked open. "You work at Ridgeview before?" the woman asked. Gray hair in a braid, no makeup, wearing a Razorbacks t-shirt and house slippers. Looked like someone's sweet grandma, but her eyes were sharp as hell. "Used to," I said slowly. Why? She nodded like she already knew. Come inside. I hesitated. Ma'am, I'm just here to. I know who you are. I've seen your face. You and that other girl. Marla? The one they tried to bury. I stood there for a second, bag still in my hand. Then I followed her in. The place smelled like coffee and old books. She led me past the kitchen into a small den with file boxes stacked floor to ceiling. She sat down, opened a leather-bound notebook, and slid it across the table. Name's Angie. I ran numbers for Ridgeview for 9 years before I quit. Couldn't take it anymore. I flipped through the pages. Handwritten notes. Column after column of shipment dates, invoice totals, red flags circled in ink. Some pages had photos clipped to them. Injuries, damaged crates, syringes with expiration dates long past due. That's from 2017 to last year, she said. Meds that never arrived, money that vanished, animals that got dosed with garbage. I looked up at her. Why keep all this? She leaned forward. Because nobody believed me. And the ones who did? They were too scared. I pointed to one of the flagged entries. Saul again? She let out a dry laugh. Saul's just the front man. The real safety net? His brother-in-law, Curtis Ray. Runs county animal services. Makes sure inspections go smooth and contracts keep flowing. I rubbed my eyes. Jesus. They've built this whole thing up like a damn machine. If one person talks, they get replaced. If someone pushes too hard, they get blacklisted, just like you. I couldn't sit still anymore. I stood and started pacing. Why didn't you take this to someone? I did, 3 times. You know what I got? Shrugs and silence. I'm a retired accountant, honey. They treated me like a bitter ex-employee. She reached into a file box and pulled out a flash drive. Held it between 2 fingers like a lit match. That's every scanned document I've got. Thousands of pages. Originals are hidden somewhere else. I stared at it. She smiled, slow and serious. We've been waiting for someone brave enough to start the fire. I took the drive and slipped it into my jacket pocket without saying a word. Didn't need to. Because that was the moment I realized. We weren't alone anymore. I barely made it back to my car before calling Marla. Get a notebook, I said. We're about to start digging for real. We spent the next 3 days reaching out to anyone we'd ever worked with. People who'd left quietly, people who'd been fired, even the ones who used to joke about not asking questions. Most didn't answer at first, but a few did. First was Devin, a former vet tech who quit after a dog coded under anesthesia. He said the sedative was labeled as ketamine, but he knew from the smell it was something cheaper. He tried to report it, got pulled into HR the next day and was asked to resign. Then came Elise, a high school volunteer who worked weekends. She remembered overhearing Marla arguing with Saul one day, back when Saul said the county wouldn't care about one missing file. Elise had photos of intake logs that didn't match the final reports. And Marcus, he'd been a driver, mostly transporting animals to off-site locations. One time, a box of sedatives tipped over in the van. He told us the seals on every vial were already broken. One night we met at this old bar behind a bowling alley. Just the 3 of us in a corner booth, and passed around Angie's flash drive on my beat-up Chromebook. I watched their faces shift from doubt to pure rage. This is worse than I thought, Marcus muttered. Yeah, Marla said. And it's been happening for years. But the real break came when we found Ralph. Ralph was the night janitor at Ridgeview. Quiet guy, mid-50s, always had a cigarette tucked behind his ear even when he wasn't smoking. He was still working there. I caught him behind the dumpster during a late-night delivery. I parked, hopped out, and said, Ralph, I need 5 minutes. It's about Saul. He didn't even blink. Finally. We met again the next night in the back of his truck. He brought hand-drawn maps, the kennel layout where the records were stored, which cabinet stayed unlocked, even which door Saul used to sneak in after hours. He's prepping something big, Ralph said, flicking ash into a soda can. Some expo thing, media, county reps, the whole circus. I looked at Marla. You hear about that? Barely. He's been throwing around the words ethical animal care like it's a damn slogan. Ralph nodded. They're gonna parade this place like it's heaven. Meanwhile, animals are dying in locked rooms. Nobody checks the logs. Nobody gives a damn. He pulled out a laminated ID badge from his pocket. This'll get you into the admin wing. I made a copy last year when I thought about quitting. Didn't have the guts to use it. Marla took it and said, We do. That night, we didn't sleep. We sat in my apartment, surrounded by old case files, coffee cups, and screenshots. We pieced together the gaps. Who was where? When shipments disappeared? Which vets got silenced? And we came up with a plan. If Saul wanted the spotlight, we'd hand it to him. But this time, the lights would be hot, blinding, uncontrolled. He wanted to show off? Fine. We'd let the world see exactly what he'd built, from the inside out. The week after we mapped out the expo plan, things started getting weird. I got a call from my grandma's assisted living facility. They said her insurance provider changed overnight. No notice, no paperwork, nothing. Suddenly, she didn't qualify for her current room, and they were moving her to a shared wing with no AC. I drove over, livid. Spent 4 hours digging through Medicare records and phone trees. Finally got some woman in an offshore call center who told me the policy was updated by an internal administrator. I hadn't touched anything. 2 days later, I came home to find a notice taped to my door. Noise complaints, possible health violations, and a request to vacate within 30 days. I lived in a basement-level apartment. I didn't even own speakers. Then the brakes on my car gave out pulling into a left turn off Highway 23. I slammed the emergency and coasted into a ditch. Could have died. Mechanic looked at me like I was crazy when I asked if it could have been tampered with. "Who'd want to mess with your brakes, man?" he asked. I didn't answer. That night, I called Marla, told her everything. She didn't sound surprised. "They're watching us," she said. "They're scared." The next morning, Ralph texted me, "Let go. Accused of stealing. Can't talk. Careful." We hadn't even used his badge yet. I called Angie, told her what was going on. She listened quietly, then said, "I've got someone who might help. Don't talk to anyone else until you meet him." That afternoon, I was in her living room again, coffee going cold on the table. She introduced me to a guy named Drew, late 30s, wire-rimmed glasses, jittery but smart as hell. Used to work for a cybersecurity firm until he got sick of fixing rich people's secrets. Angie handed him everything I had on the insurance change: emails, call logs, account access history. Drew pulled out a battered laptop and got to work like he was unlocking a video game cheat code. 40 minutes later, he turned the screen toward me. This change was done manually, internal login, admin level, time-stamped. Whoever did this had access to federal health credentialing. I blinked. "Can you prove who logged in?" He nodded. "Already did." On the screen was a name I recognized: Raymond C., one of the county's IT guys. The same name printed on half the emails Angie had saved from her shelter accounting days. "Who's he work for now?" I asked. Angie didn't even pause. "Curtis Ray's department?" My chest tightened. So Saul's brother-in-law had someone mess with my grandma's insurance? Drew leaned back. "Looks that way." I couldn't sit still. I stood up, pacing in tight circles. "They're playing dirty now," I said. "This isn't just cover-up anymore. It's personal." Marla agreed when I called. "They're escalating because they know what's coming. We need to move fast." "We don't have fast. We barely have safe." "Then we make it unsafe for them." Her voice was solid, steady. She was all in. I looked back at Drew and Angie, then at the flash drive on the table, the notebook, the folders, the whole damn mountain of truth we'd collected. I wasn't scared anymore. They wanted to intimidate us? Fine. Now we'd hit back. Angie didn't even wait until I sat down. She met me at the front door with her keys already in hand and said, "There's someone I want you to meet. Get in." 15 minutes later, we pulled into a diner parking lot off the highway in Ozark, one of those old-school spots with sun-faded booths and a jukebox that probably hadn't worked since the 90s. "She's in back," Angie said, motioning toward the last booth by the bathrooms. The woman sitting there had her hair pulled into a tight bun and a manila folder in front of her that she hadn't touched. Her eyes locked on mine before I even got to the table. "Lena," she said, offering a handshake. "State Inspector. I've been watching Saul's operation for over a year." I slid into the booth across from her. "You already know who I am?" "Yep. Your name came up in a few reports. You and Marla have stirred up more trouble in the last month than we managed in 12. Angie sat beside her, silent. Lena leaned in. "Tell me everything." So I did. From the shed to the bad meds to the retaliation tactics. She barely blinked, just nodded along, scribbling notes on a legal pad between sips of black coffee. Every few minutes, she'd ask something short, direct. "What date?" Or, "Did you get names?" When I finished, she folded her hands. "It's solid, but it's not enough." What do you mean? We need undeniable evidence, something visual, something that proves neglect, cruelty, corruption, all at once, and we need it public. Public? Lena leaned back. The expo, that's our shot. The media will be there. County reps? If you want this to stick, we hit them in front of an audience. I nodded slowly. We already have a plan. She raised an eyebrow. Let's hear it. So I told her. The idea to sabotage the AC system during the event. Nothing dangerous, just enough to recreate what Marla went through in the shed. Attendees start sweating, fainting. We set up booths outside, hand out documents, water bottles, photos, the works. Lena didn't smile, but her eyes lit up just enough to show she liked it. I can work with that, she said. I'll be there as a guest, inspector's badge and all. If things go sideways, I can pull rank. Buy you time. Angie finally spoke. We don't want time. We want results. You'll get both, Lena said, opening the folder. But there's more you need to see. She slid over 3 pages, printed copies of shipping logs, names, dates, serial numbers. At the bottom, she tapped the red text that had been circled twice. This is your nuke. I read the line, rabies vials, lot number A119X, distributed to Greenwood, Mulberry, and Clarkton school districts. Marla had told me Saul handled county therapy contracts, schools, nursing homes. But these were faulty? I asked. Worse, expired. Some were improperly stored, never chilled. Half of them probably didn't work at all. My stomach dropped. So kids got vaccinated with useless doses? She nodded once. 3 districts, hundreds of students. Paperwork's doctored. Real records show they were warned and still pushed it through. I couldn't breathe for a second. I just sat there, staring at the pages. This is enough to bring in the state board, Lena said. But we have to time it right. We drop it during the expo. The entire system crumbles. Angie looked at me. You in? I looked back down at the records, the names, the lies, then at Lena. We light it up. She reached into her bag and pulled out an official ID badge clipped to a black lanyard. I'll be inside watching everything. You give me the signal. I'll start pulling regulators and press. I took a deep breath. All right, we go full burn. We were 2 days out from the expo when everything started falling apart. First, Clay, the guy who was supposed to sabotage the HVAC system, just stopped answering his phone. No text, no call, nothing. I drove to his trailer outside Alma and found a police line do not cross tape strung across his front steps. Neighbor told me he got picked up for possession the night before. Funny thing was, Clay didn't even smoke weed. That guy wouldn't touch Tylenol if it wasn't sealed. By the time I got back to my place, I had 7 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. It was Marla's son. Hey, it's Kyle. You know my mom. They took her, he said, voice shaking. Cops showed up this morning with a warrant. Said something about fraud. I nearly dropped the phone. Where is she now? County holding. They won't let me talk to her. She said to call you. She said, tell him not to stop. I sat down on the curb outside my apartment and felt everything cave in for a second. Clay gone. Marla locked up. Half the team scared silent. I texted everyone in our group thread. Meet tonight. 8 p.m., my place. We're not backing down. Only one person responded right away. Ree, I'm bringing duct tape and a coffee IV. That night, we sat shoulder to shoulder in my living room. 6 of us, drained and pissed off but not broken. Ree was the one who came through. She used to be a vet tech at Ridgeview, back when the equipment actually got serviced. Said if we couldn't mess with the HVAC directly, we'd go passive. We angle reflective panels at the outdoor units, she said, laying out a quick sketch on the back of a pizza box. That system's already on its last legs. You trap heat around it, it'll choke out by noon. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's brilliant. Ree smirked. I didn't get fired for being dumb. We split into teams. Angie would keep Lena updated and make sure all the files were backed up in 3 separate cloud accounts. I'd be on site early, posing as a volunteer with one of the old Ridgeview badges. Ralph had stashed one for me in a locker months ago. Ree and Devin would hit the HVAC units before sunrise. All they needed was 45 minutes, some reflective mylar, and the right angles. Think it'll work? Marcus asked me while we were rolling up cables. It has to, I said. There's no backup plan this time. We didn't sleep. We didn't even try. I sat in the kitchen with Angie and drank gas station coffee while she printed out backup copies of the vaccine logs. You nervous? She asked. I shook my head. I'm past that. She looked over her glasses. You know Marla's counting on you, I nodded. We all are. By 5 a.m., we were packed and ready. Phones charged, docs printed, equipment labeled. We weren't just whistleblowers anymore. We were the fuse. By the time the expo started, it was already 88 degrees and climbing. The sun felt like it was leaning directly over Ridgeview's roof, and the air barely moved. Retexted me at 10:12 a.m. HVAC groaning. Condensers choking? Give it an hour. We were set up just past the parking lot, under a white event tent that looked way too clean for a shelter with dead animals in its records. I wore the old Ridgeview volunteer badge, khakis, and a blue polo like everyone else, smiling through my teeth. By 11:30, the main building was full. Politicians, county reps, news people, all doing their little handshakes and photo ops while Saul walked around playing King of the Castle. His voice echoed through the speakers every 10 minutes. Today is about transparency, accountability, and compassionate care. Lena stood inside by the main entrance, sipping bottled water, wearing her inspector badge on a red lanyard like a blade hidden in plain sight. Noon hit, and everything shifted. People inside started fanning themselves. The AC vents stopped humming. Sweat rolled down necks. A few women pulled out tissues, blotting their faces. Saul kept talking like nothing was happening, but you could see it. The shift in the crowd. 12:15. A guy in a blazer stumbled out of the building, blinking like he just stepped out of a sauna. Is it just me? He said to no one. Or is it boiling in there? Another woman followed, pressing a cold can of Sprite to her neck, then another. 5 minutes later, someone fainted near the adoption booth and hit the tile floor so hard, the sound carried out the open doors. I stepped outside, waved over Devon and Marcus, and gave the nod. Station's up, I said. We rolled out the coolers, unfolded tables, and flipped the banners. Ridgeview Reality printed in bold red across white canvas. We had bottled water, handouts, QR codes linked to backup drives, and laminated files from Angie's archive lined up like a war table. Ree pulled back the tarp covering the big screen we'd rented from a college AV kid and hit play. Marla's voice came through clear. My name is Marla Jensen. I worked at Ridgeview for 6 years. What you're about to see nearly killed me. The video showed photos of the shed, the temperature gauge, time-stamped inventory logs, vaccine boxes still sealed, voice clips from ex-staff, Angie's spreadsheets, the doctored files Lena confirmed from the school districts. People gathered. Then phones came out. Then the reporters turned. Inside, Saul's voice faded. Someone must have told him what was happening because he came out fast, red-faced, sweat dripping down his neck, furious. You don't belong here, he barked at me. This is a private event. I stepped aside, revealing Lena behind me. Yes, and I'm an invited inspector, she said, flashing her badge. You're done, Saul. He tried to push past her. You think some water bottles and scare tactics are enough to... Lena cut him off. We've reviewed internal records. You knowingly distributed expired rabies vaccines to 3 school districts. You falsified medical documentation. You retaliated against whistleblowers. This entire facility is under formal shutdown, effective immediately. Gasps all around. Nobody moved. Even the press stood frozen. Lena stepped forward. You're being detained under state order pending criminal charges. 2 uniformed officers moved through the crowd like ghosts. Calm. Director. One grabbed Saul's elbow. The other read him his rights. He looked at me, eyes wide with panic, like somehow this was still unbelievable to him. You think this ends with me? He spat. No, I said. It ends with the truth. The officers walked him out, past rows of cameras, water cups, and stunned guests. No applause, no yelling, just quiet. The kind of quiet you get right after the fire starts. They took Saul away, and everything cracked open after that. Within 24 hours, the state put Ridgeview on lockdown. By the end of the week, 2 assistant managers were arrested, one for destroying medical records, the other for fraud. County officials tried to spin it, but the papers had already printed Lena's statement and photos of Saul in cuffs. Negligence and misconduct in county-funded animal care. Criminal charges pending. Marla got released the same day the expose ran front page. The fraud case? Dropped. Wiped clean, Lena walked her out of holding herself. Kyle cried when he saw her, then found out the shelter's education fund had been redirected to a new state scholarship for kids of whistleblowers. He was first in line. I didn't go back to deliveries. Lena offered me a position on her team, statewide reform initiative, policy audits, field investigations, real oversight. I took it without thinking twice. I was ready to tear this system down one contract at a time. They started drafting a bill the following month. Whistleblower protections for animal care industries. Marla's name is in the footnotes. We met at a diner the day after the first draft was finalized. Same corner booth where I'd met Lena. Marla wore her hair down for the first time in weeks and brought a notebook full of bullet points and ideas for transparency reforms. She poured cream into her coffee, then looked at me across the table. You ever think we'd get this far? I shook my head. Thought we'd be screaming into the dark forever. She smiled. We didn't just save the animals. I nodded. We saved people too. We sat for a while, just breathing, letting it sink in. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. You writing the report? She asked. I shook my head again. Writing the story. She raised an eyebrow. Not for the papers, I said. Not for fame. For the ones still stuck. The ones too scared to speak. They need to know it's possible. She didn't say anything, just reached across the table and tapped the lid closed. You've earned a break, she said. I let out a breath. Maybe. But the truth is, this wasn't about earning anything. It was about making people feel what we felt. Because sometimes pain in numbers doesn't land. Photos don't tell the whole story, and nobody cares until they sweat.